The galaxy was dying. No one said it out loud at first. No one wanted to believe it. But deep inside, every leader, every soldier, every living being already knew the truth. Something was coming, and nothing could stop it. It started quietly. One small colony at the edge of the galaxy went silent. No distress call. No warning. Just gone. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was a system failure. Maybe a natural disaster. Maybe pirates. But then another system went dark. Then another. And another. Within a few cycles, entire star systems had disappeared like they never existed. No survivors. No signals. No bodies. Only silence. Now, the Galactic Council chamber was filled with fear. The Great Hall, once full of pride and powerful voices, was now heavy and quiet. The leaders of the galaxy sat in a circle, each one different, each one powerful in their own way. Some were tall and glowing with energy. Some had metal bodies with artificial minds. Some had soft skin and large eyes filled with emotion. But today, they all shared one thing: fear. At the center of the chamber stood High Chancellor Virek. His face was calm, but his eyes told a different story. He was tired. "We have lost 73 systems," he said slowly. A large hologram appeared in the air. Bright stars filled the map, but many of them were now red. Dead. The red lights spread across the galaxy like a disease. No communication. No survivors. Virek continued. A silence followed. Then one council member spoke, his voice shaking. "What are we fighting?" No one answered, because no one knew. A military commander stepped forward. "We sent our best fleets," he said. "They never returned." Another added, "We tried long-range attacks. Nothing worked." "They do not respond to signals," a third said. "They do not negotiate," another whispered. "They do not stop." The room grew colder. Then a voice from the shadows spoke. "Then we are already defeated." No one argued, because it felt true. Virek looked around the chamber. For the first time in his long life, he had no answer. No plan. No hope. Just then a small figure slowly stood up. He was old. Very old. His species was known for history and knowledge, not war. Most people had forgotten them. But today, everyone turned to look at him. "I may have an answer," the old historian said. The room shifted. Some looked interested. Others looked worried. Virek narrowed his eyes. "Speak." The historian walked forward, his movements slow but steady. "There is one option left." The moment he said those words, the entire room changed. Some leaders looked angry. Some looked afraid. Some looked shocked. Virek's voice became sharp. That option was banned. The historian nodded. "Yes." "Then why mention it?" Another leader shouted. "Because we are out of time," the historian replied calmly. He raised his hand. A new hologram appeared. Old data. Ancient records. A symbol no one had seen in a long time. Then a single word appeared. "Humans." The reaction was immediate. "No. That is madness." We agreed never again. Voices filled the chamber. Some leaders stood up in anger. Others looked ready to leave. Virek did not speak. He just stared at the word. A council member slammed his hand down. "Humans are unstable. They destroy everything." Another added, "They even fight each other." "They cannot be controlled," someone else shouted. "They are too dangerous." The historian did not argue. He simply nodded. "Yes, all of that is true." The room went quiet again. Then he added, "But they survive." Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The historian continued. "They have faced extinction many times, and every time, they adapted. They fight differently. They think differently. They do not give up." Virek finally spoke. "Where are they now?" The historian hesitated for a moment. "Hidden." The room grew tense. "After the last war, we made sure they stayed isolated," he said. "Cut off from the galaxy. Watched, but never contacted." A long pause filled the chamber. Everyone understood what this meant. If they called humans, there was no going back. Virek closed his eyes. "If we call them, we may not survive them." The historian looked directly at him. And if we do not call them, he paused, we will not survive at all. The words stayed in the air. No one spoke. No one moved. For the first time, the most powerful leaders in the galaxy had to face a simple truth. They had no good choice. Only a bad one.
And a worse one.
Slowly, Vyrek opened his eyes. His voice was quiet, but firm. Prepare the signal. The room froze. Some leaders looked shocked. Others looked afraid. But no one stopped him. A technician stepped forward with shaking hands. Are you sure, Chancellor? Vyrek looked at the map again. At all the red stars. At everything they had already lost. Yes, he said. Far across the galaxy, an ancient communication system powered on. A system that had not been used in centuries. A message was created. Simple.
Direct.
Desperate. Galactic Council requests immediate assistance. Then, it was sent. The signal traveled through space. Across dead systems. Past silent stars. Through darkness. Toward a place no one had dared to contact. And somewhere, in the deep unknown, humanity received the message. The most dangerous species in the galaxy had just been called. And this time they were not being asked to stay away. Far away from the known galaxy, beyond the maps of the Galactic Council, there was a region of space no one talked about. Not because it was empty, but because of what lived there. A signal moved through the darkness. It was old, ancient, and dangerous. It passed through broken systems, dead stars, and silent space, until finally, it reached its destination. A hidden fleet, human. The ships were not shining like the elegant vessels of alien races. They were dark, heavy, built like weapons. Scars covered their metal surfaces. Some parts looked repaired many times. Others looked completely different, as if they had been changed again and again. Because they had. Human ships were never finished. They evolved. Inside the largest ship, a red light began to blink. A signal had arrived. A young officer stared at the screen. Sir, we are receiving something strange. Behind him stood Admiral Kane. A tall man.
Calm. Silent.
His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were sharp. Play it, he said. The message appeared.
Short.
Simple. But impossible to ignore. Galactic Council requests immediate assistance. The room went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The officer swallowed slowly. Sir, this is them.
Kane did not answer right away.
He stepped closer to the screen, reading the message again. And again. They finally sent it, he said quietly. Another officer spoke. I thought they would never contact us again.
They swore they wouldn't, someone else added.
They were afraid of us. Kane gave a small, almost invisible smile. They were right to be. Silence filled the command room. Everyone knew the history. Everyone knew what humans had done, and what they were capable of. A young recruit, new and unsure, asked carefully, Sir, why did they fear us so much? No one laughed. No one ignored the question. Because it mattered. Kane turned slightly.
His voice was calm.
Because we don't fight like them. He walked slowly across the room. They build perfect systems. They follow rules. They avoid risk.
He stopped.
We don't. The crew listened carefully. We fight to survive, Kane continued. And when survival is at stake, we change everything. Another officer added quietly. We broke their balance. Kane nodded. Yes. Long ago, humans had joined the galactic community. At first, they were weak.
New.
Unstable. Other species tried to guide them, control them, limit them. But humans didn't follow. They experimented. They pushed boundaries. They created weapons others refused to even imagine. And when war came, humans didn't just fight. They adapted. Faster than anyone. They won battles they should have lost. They survived attacks that should have destroyed them. But they also did something else. Something that terrified the galaxy. They were willing to sacrifice everything, if it meant winning. The memory of that time still lived in the silence of the room. The recruit spoke again, his voice lower now. So, they pushed us away? Kane nodded. Yes. After the last war, the Council decided we were too dangerous. They isolated us. Cut us off from their systems. Another officer added. They thought distance would protect them. Kane looked back at the message. And now they are calling us. The room felt different now. Heavier. More serious. Sir, the first officer asked, do we answer? No one spoke after that. Everyone waited. This decision would change everything. Kane stood still for a long moment, looking at the stars beyond the ship. Then he spoke. Show me the current galactic map. A large display appeared. Red zones everywhere. Far worse than expected. The enemy had spread fast. Too fast. Kane studied it carefully. They're losing, he said. An officer nodded. Yes, sir. And badly. Another added, no known species has been able to stop this enemy. Kane crossed his arms. Unknown enemy. No communication. Total destruction. He looked at the crew. That means one thing. What, sir? Someone asked. Kane's eyes hardened. They are not thinking like us. Silence again. The crew understood. That was exactly why humans were different. They didn't wait for the enemy to explain itself. They forced answers. Kane turned back to the screen. The message was still there. Simple. Desperate. Sir, the young recruit whispered. What if this is a trap? Kane smiled slightly. Then it's a bad one. The crew looked confused. Kane explained, if they wanted to destroy us, they would not ask for help. That made sense. Another officer spoke. But sir, if we go back, things won't be the same. Kane nodded slowly. I know. He looked at each member of his crew. One by one. If we answer this call, we are not just entering a war. He paused. We are returning to a galaxy that fears us. No one looked away. And once we step back in, Kane's voice became firm. We don't step out again. The meaning was clear. This was not a mission. This was a return. A dangerous one. Kane took a deep breath, then gave the order. Prepare the fleet. The room came alive instantly. Commands were shouted. Systems activated. Engines powered up. Massive human warships began to move. One after another. Dark. Silent. Ready. The young recruit looked out at the fleet. Dozens of ships. All built for one purpose. War. Sir, he said quietly. Do you think they know what they've done? Kane looked at the stars ahead, where the signal had come from. No, he said. A small pause. They don't. The engines roared to life. Humanity was moving back into the galaxy. And this time, they were not coming as allies. They were coming as the last option. The most dangerous species had answered the call. The galaxy was waiting. No one said it, but everyone felt it. Something was coming. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the tension was heavy. No one spoke loudly anymore. No arguments. No pride. Only quiet voices and fear. High Chancellor Vyrek stood near the center, staring at the large holographic map. Red zones had grown even bigger. More systems were gone. More lives erased. Any update? He asked. A technician shook slightly. No, Chancellor. The enemy is still advancing. Another council member spoke. And the signal? Silence. The technician hesitated. No response. A wave of discomfort moved through the room. Some leaders looked down. Others closed their eyes. They're not coming, one whispered. Before anyone could reply, an alarm suddenly echoed through the chamber. Loud. Sharp. Unexpected. Everyone froze. What is that? Someone shouted. A guard rushed forward. Unknown fleet detected. The entire room turned toward the main display. Identify them, Vyrek ordered. The screen flickered. For a moment, nothing appeared. Then, shapes. Dark shapes. Large. Slowly emerging from empty space. Gasps filled the chamber. They just appeared, the technician said, confused. No warp signal. No warning. The ships were massive. Not smooth like alien designs. Not elegant. They looked heavy. Layered. Built with purpose. Scars covered their surface. Some parts looked newer. Others looked ancient. They look rebuilt, one council member whispered. Yes, another replied. Like they've been through war many times. The room went silent again. Virex stepped closer to the display. How many ships? The technicians scanned quickly. More than 30. Murmurs spread. That's not a fleet. That's an army. Then one quiet voice said, "They came ready." Before anyone could respond, another signal appeared. "Incoming transmission," the technician said. The room held its breath. Virek nodded slowly. "Open it." The screen changed. For a second, nothing. Just static. Then, a figure appeared.
Human.
He stood straight. No fear. No hesitation. His uniform was simple but strong. His face calm. But his eyes. Sharp. Focused. Dangerous. "I am Admiral Kane," he said. No greeting. No respect words. "I received your signal." The council members looked at each other. This was not how other species spoke. Virek stepped forward. "I am High Chancellor." Kane interrupted him. "Tell me about the enemy." The room froze. Some leaders looked shocked. Others looked angry. He interrupted the Chancellor. How dare he? But Virek raised his hand, silencing them, because he understood something important. This human was not here for politics. He was here for war. Virek spoke again, slower this time. "The enemy is unknown. It destroys entire systems. No communication. No survivors." Kane listened carefully. "How long?" he asked. 12 cycles, Virek replied. Kane's expression did not change. "How many losses?" "Over 70 systems." Silence. Kane looked slightly to the side, thinking. Then he asked something unexpected. "Show me a live attack." The council members looked confused. A live attack," one repeated. "Yes," Kane said calmly. "We don't have time for reports." Virek nodded. "Bring it up." The screen changed again. A distant system appeared. Ships were fighting. Explosions everywhere. Council fleets were trying to defend. But something was wrong. The enemy ships did not look normal. They moved strangely. Not like machines. Not like living beings. They changed direction too fast. Attacked without pattern. "They don't follow strategy," a general whispered. Kane watched silently. His eyes focused. Then something happened. One of the council ships fired a powerful beam. Direct hit. The enemy ship did not explode. It shifted, changed shape, and attacked again. Gasps filled the chamber. "They adapt," someone said. Kane finally spoke.
No.
The room turned toward him. "They don't adapt," he said. "They evolve mid-fight." Silence. That was worse. Much worse. The battle on screen ended quickly. Council ships were destroyed, one by one. Then, nothing. Silence again. The transmission ended. No survivors. Kane stood still, thinking. Then he looked directly at Virek. "You were right to call us." The words shocked the room. One council member stood up. "So you will help us?" Kane looked at him, his expression unreadable. "We will fight," he said. Relief spread across some faces. But then, he added something else. "But you will not like how we do it." The relief disappeared. Virek narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Kane stepped closer to the screen. "You've been trying to understand them."
Pause.
"That's your mistake." The room went silent again. Kane's voice became colder. "You don't study an enemy like this." Another pause. "You break it." A chill ran through the chamber. One council member whispered, "What are you planning?" Kane gave a small, almost invisible smile. "Something you would never allow." Silence.
Deep.
Uncomfortable. For the first time, the Galactic Council understood something clearly. They had asked for help, but they had not asked the right question.
Not.
Can humans save us?
But.
What will humans do to save us? And now, it was too late to take it back. Outside the chamber, human warships moved into position. Quiet.
Dark.
Ready. The war was about to change, and the galaxy was not ready for it.
Fire.
The war did not stop, But something inside it changed. At first, the Galactic Council did not understand what humans were doing. They expected large attacks, massive fleets, direct battles. That was how wars were fought in the galaxy. Order, structure, rules. Humans followed none of them. Admiral Kane stood in the command room of his flagship, watching multiple screens at once. Enemy movements, council defenses, energy patterns, everything. Status, he asked. An officer replied quickly. Enemy is advancing in 3 sectors. Council fleets are retreating. Kane nodded. Good. The officer hesitated. Sir, good? Kane looked at him.
Yes.
Let them move. Confusion filled the room. Another officer spoke carefully. Sir, if we don't stop them, more systems will fall. Kane turned back to the screen. They were going to fall anyway. Silence. We don't win by defending, Kane continued. We win by changing the game. The crew exchanged looks. They understood now. This was not going to be a normal war. Phase 1, Kane said. Begin. Across space. Human ships disappeared. Not destroyed.
Gone.
The council noticed immediately. What are they doing? One leader asked. They're retreating, another said. No, Vyrek whispered. They're not retreating. They're setting something. Far from the main battle lines, in a quiet, empty system. Human ships were moving silently. No lights. No signals. Small devices were released into space. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. What are those? A young human officer asked. Seeds, the commander replied. The officer frowned. Seeds. The commander smiled slightly. You'll see. Back at the front lines, the enemy continued advancing.
Fast.
Relentless. They entered the empty system. No resistance. No defense. Easy victory. Or so it seemed. Inside the council chamber, leaders watched closely. Why are the humans not attacking? Someone asked. They're letting the enemy grow stronger, another shouted. Vyrek said nothing. He was watching carefully. Something felt wrong. Then, it happened. The moment the enemy fleet reached the center of the system, everything changed. The small devices activated. A sudden flash of light filled the system. Then, darkness. All signals disappeared. The council gasped. What happened? No readings. We lost all visuals. Panic spread. Then, slowly, the signals returned. The screen showed the system again.
But now,
the enemy fleet was gone. Completely gone. Silence. What did they do? Someone whispered. Vyrek's voice was low. They collapsed the system. Shock filled the room. They destroyed an entire star system? A leader shouted. Yes, Vyrek said. Another added. But the energy required, that's impossible. Vyrek shook his head slowly. For us, back on the human flagship, the crew watched the result. Target eliminated, an officer reported. No celebration. No cheering. Just quiet focus. The young recruit looked at the screen, shocked. Sir, we destroyed everything. Kane did not look away. Yes. The recruit swallowed. Including the system. Kane finally spoke. They were already dead. Silence. We just chose how, he added. The news spread quickly across the council. Fear replaced hope. These are our allies? One leader asked. They're destroying entire systems. This is madness. But another voice spoke quietly. It worked. Silence followed. Because it was true. For the first time, the enemy had been stopped. But the war was not over. Not even close. Days passed. Then more attacks began. But this time, the enemy was different. They were slower. More careful. They are reacting, a council general said. They are learning, another added. Vyrek looked at the data. Yes, they are adapting to the humans. Back on the human flagship, Kane watched the same patterns. They've changed, an officer said. Yes, Kane replied. They're watching us now. Another officer asked, Is that bad? Kane's eyes narrowed. It means they finally see us as a threat.
Pause.
And that means... He did not finish the sentence. But everyone understood. The real war was about to begin. Suddenly, an alert sounded. Sir, enemy fleet approaching, Sector 9. Kane turned immediately. Size. The officer's voice shook slightly. Larger than anything we've seen before. Silence filled the room. They're not holding back anymore, someone whispered. Kane stared at the screen. Then he smiled. Not with joy, but with something else.
Excitement.
Good, he said. The crew looked at him, surprised. Kane's voice became firm. They've stopped playing safe. He turned to his officers. Now we see what they really are. Back at the council chamber, the leaders watched the incoming data. The enemy fleet was massive, bigger than anything before. This is it, one leader said. They're going to destroy everything. Vyrek stood still, watching, thinking. Then he whispered, or they're making a mistake. Because for the first time, the enemy was not hunting weak targets. They were moving toward something else. Something new. Something dangerous. They were moving toward humanity. And this time, they were not chasing. They were preparing.
The war had changed.
The rules were gone. And now, two dangerous forces were about to collide. The galaxy held its breath. Because deep down, everyone understood one thing. This was no longer a war for survival. This was a war between monsters.
The war had changed.
But now, something else was changing too. The truth. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, fear had returned. But this time it was different. It was not fear of losing. It was fear of understanding. High Chancellor Vyrek stood in silence, watching the latest reports. The enemy fleet was no longer attacking random systems. It had a direction, a purpose. They are moving in a straight line, a strategist said. Toward where? Another asked. The answer came slowly. Toward the human fleet. Silence filled the room. They are targeting them, someone whispered. Another leader shook his head. No, not targeting. Hunting. Far across space, the massive enemy fleet moved like a storm. Dark shapes filled the void. Countless. Endless. But something was different now. They were not rushing. They were not spreading. They were focused. Like a predator. On the human flagship, Admiral Kane stood calmly, watching the same data. They're coming for us, an officer said. Kane nodded. Yes. No fear. No surprise. Almost expectation. The young recruit stepped forward again. Sir, why us? Kane did not answer immediately. Instead, he turned to another officer. Bring up the deep scan records.
The screen changed.
Old data appeared. Very old. Where did we get this? Someone asked. Kane replied. From the first encounter. Confusion spread. First encounter? The recruit repeated. Kane looked at the screen. Long before the council knew about them. We found them. The room went silent. Images appeared on the screen. Broken human ships. Destroyed colonies. Strange black structures floating in space. They attacked us first, Kane said. Shock filled the room. But the council said this enemy is new, an officer said. Kane shook his head.
No.
They're not new. They're just back. Silence.
Heavy.
What are they? Someone asked quietly. Kane's voice lowered. They are not a species.
Pause.
They are a system. Confusion again. A system? The recruit asked. Kane nodded. They learn. They copy. They improve. They don't think like life. They think like a process. The crew listened carefully. They attack. They observe. They evolve. And once they understand you, Kane paused. They erase you. A chill ran through the room. Then how did we survive? The recruit asked. Kane looked at him. Because we broke their process. Back at the council chamber, the same data was now being shown. Vyrek watched carefully. They have fought this enemy before, he said slowly. One leader looked shocked. And they didn't tell us? Another whispered. They were hiding it. Vyrek raised his hand.
No.
They were containing it. Silence again. Back on the human flagship, they expected us to stay hidden, Kane said. To never return. But the council called us, an officer added. Kane nodded. Yes. And that changed everything. The recruit looked confused.
How?
Kane turned to the main screen. The enemy fleet was getting closer.
They learned something new, he said.
What? The recruit asked. Kane's voice became cold. They learned we are still here.
Silence.
And now, Kane continued, they are adapting for us. The meaning hit the room like a shockwave. The enemy was not just attacking the galaxy. It was preparing for humanity. Suddenly, an alert sounded. Sir, enemy signal detected. Signal, an officer repeated. They've never sent signals before. Put it on screen, Kane ordered. The screen flickered. Strange symbols appeared. Moving.
Changing.
Not a language. Not exactly. But something close. They're trying to communicate, the recruit whispered. Kane watched carefully. His eyes narrowed. Then, the symbols changed, forming a pattern. A message. The room went completely silent. What does it say? Someone asked. The system translated slowly.
Piece by piece.
Then, words appeared. Identified.
Pause.
More symbols formed. Primary threat. The air felt heavy. Then the final line appeared. Elimination required. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. The recruit's voice shook. They're talking about us. Kane did not react. They remember us, he said quietly. Back at the council chamber, the same message appeared. Shock spread instantly. They are targeting humanity specifically. This changes everything. Vyrek stood still. Now he understood. Everything. They didn't just call humans to save them, he whispered. They brought the war to them. Back on the human flagship, the enemy fleet was now very close. Closer than ever before. Orders, sir, an officer asked. Kane looked at the screen one last time. At the message. At the approaching fleet. Then he spoke.
Calm. Clear.
Good. The crew looked at him, confused. Kane's eyes sharpened. They've finally made it simple. Silence. No more guessing. No more waiting. He turned to his crew. They know who we are.
Pause.
And now, a slight smile appeared. We show them why they should be afraid. Alarms began to sound across the fleet. Weapons powered up. Engines roared. The final battle was coming. And for the first time, the enemy had made a mistake. They had chosen to face humanity directly. And that was something no one survived. The final battle began in silence. No speeches. No warnings. No second chances. The enemy fleet filled the darkness. Endless. Massive. Like a moving wall of destruction. Across from them, human ships waited.
Still.
Quiet. Ready. Inside the flagship, Admiral Kane stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes locked on the screen. No fear. No doubt. Distance, he asked. Closing fast, an officer replied. Enemy weapons charging. Kane nodded once. Hold position. The crew exchanged looks. Sir, hold, someone asked. Yes, Kane said. The enemy came closer. 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 Inside the council chamber, panic spread. They're not moving, one leader shouted. Why aren't they attacking? They'll be destroyed. Vyrek said nothing. He was watching Kane, trying to understand. Back on the human flagship, the young recruit stepped forward again. His voice low. Sir, if we don't act now. Kane interrupted him. We are acting. The recruit frowned. I don't understand. Kane looked at him. For the first time, his expression softened slightly. You will. The enemy fleet stopped, right at the edge of attack range. Then, they fired. A storm of energy burst across space.
Bright.
Violent. Unstoppable. Shields, an officer shouted. Human ships held.
Barely.
Damage rising. Multiple impacts. Still, they did not move. Inside the council chamber, chaos erupted. This is madness. They're going to die. But Vyrek remained silent. Because now,
He was starting to see it.
back on the flagship, Kane raised his hand.
Now.
Everything changed. Human ships suddenly spread out.
Fast. Precise.
They did not attack the enemy directly. Instead, they launched something else. Hundreds of small objects, then thousands. What are those? The recruit asked. Kane's voice was calm. Keys. The objects moved quickly through space, dodging attacks, avoiding fire. The enemy tried to destroy them, but there were too many.
Then,
They reached the center of the enemy fleet.
and stopped. Silence.
For 1 second, everything paused. Then, they activated. A strange energy wave spread outward. Not explosive, not destructive. Different. The enemy ships reacted instantly.
They moved.
Shifted. Changed. Trying to adapt. But this time, something went wrong. They're slowing down, an officer said. No, they're confused, another whispered. Kane watched closely. They rely on learning, he said. They copy. They evolve.
Pause.
So, we gave them something they can't understand. The recruits stared at the screen. What did we send them? Kane answered quietly. Chaos. The wave spread deeper into the enemy fleet. Their movements became unstable, unpredictable, broken. They started attacking each other, colliding, firing in wrong directions. Inside the council chamber, shock filled the room. They're destroying themselves. How is this possible? Virek whispered. They broke their system. Back on the human flagship, the moment had come. Phase 2, Kane said. The crew moved instantly. Charging core. Energy levels rising. Warning. Overload risk. The recruit's eyes widened. Sir, this will destroy everything. Kane nodded. Yes. Silence. Even us? The recruit asked. Kane looked at the screen, at the collapsing enemy fleet, then back at the recruit. If necessary. The weight of those words filled the room. Outside, a massive energy buildup began. Human ships moved into final position, forming a circle around the enemy. The enemy tried to escape, but it was too late. They were trapped,
Confused. Broken.
core ready, an officer said. Kane took a deep breath. This was the moment. The final choice. Back in the council chamber, everyone watched. Frozen. They wouldn't, one leader whispered. Virek closed his eyes. Yes, they would. Back on the flagship, Kane gave the final order. Activate. Light exploded across space. Not like a weapon, like a star being born. A massive wave of energy spread in all directions.
Consuming everything.
Enemy ships,
Gone.
signals,
Gone.
even human ships, disappearing into the light. The galaxy went silent. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, slowly, sensors came back online. The system was empty, completely empty. Inside the council chamber, no one spoke. No one moved. Did they win? Someone whispered. Virek looked at the empty space. His voice was quiet. Yes.
Pause.
But at a cost only they would accept. Days later, small signals appeared. Human signals.
Weak.
But alive. They had survived. Again. The council received one final message. Simple.
Direct.
Threat eliminated.
Pause.
Then, do not call us again. Silence filled the chamber. Virek looked down, finally understanding the truth. Humans were not heroes. They were not saviors. They were something else. Something the galaxy could never fully control or understand. Because when everything is lost, when hope is gone, when survival is all that matters, humanity does not hesitate. They do whatever it takes. And that is why they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy.